And then there were 7. A slightly smaller group of candidates is taking the stage for the second GOP presidential debate happening tonight. You can see the full list of participants there on your screen, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. But who you don't see is the frontrunner, Donald Trump, who is once again skipping the debate. He'll be in Michigan for the UAW strike. Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson also will not be there after failing to make the cut the second time around. Here to talk more about it and what we can expect from the Republican debate, political strategist Boyd Matheson. Hello to you, sir, and good morning. Trump is skipping it. So far, he has been leading by a landslide in the polls. He doesn't have to be there, right? So what is the message that sends to the others on the debate stage that he continues to ignore them?
The big thing in all of this, Marni, is that there are opportunities for each of these candidates to actually get some traction and kind of change the dynamics of the race. We know the race will continue to be fluid until we actually get to those early states of Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. So the big broad polls where the former president is way ahead are a little deceiving. It's really about on the ground work there. And so I do think there's moments for each of these candidates to spell out a different kind of story, change the narrative. Many people are saying, hey, this is the race for second place. I think they still have to treat it as the race to replace the former president if they want to get someone different at the top of the ticket.
Yeah, race to second place or a race for who might be the VP candidate on the ticket or a cabinet seat. It's got to be tough, even if you look at any of the polls, for them to see where do we gain momentum, where do we pick up traction.
Yeah, and I do think there are spaces for that to happen. You're starting to hear more of the candidates say, look, you can like the policies of the former president, but if you like those policies but don't like the baggage or don't like the tone or the tenor of it all, there are choices. And I think that's the case that a lot of them are going to try to make tonight. And of course, doing it at the Ronald Reagan Library is a pretty epic place to do that. I think if you're playing debate bingo tonight, I think the word Ronald Reagan will probably be the one to put all the money on, because I think he will be invoked early and often in this. I think the test for many of these candidates, though, Marni, will be not just can they talk about Ronald Reagan, but can they act like Ronald Reagan? In other words, can they do the hard part of what they're against, the standing up, but can they also paint a vision for the future that the American people can get excited about? I don't think any of them have really done an effective job of doing that just yet. In the Senate, we always referred to this as the Boston to Philadelphia model. Boston Tea Party was a protest against the things the colonists didn't want. But if they'd stopped there, it just would have been another angry mob with a bunch of grievances. But they marched forward to Philadelphia, where they put down in the Constitution, this is the kind of government we do want. So for the debate stage, can Ron DeSantis do more than be against all the woke organizations? Can Chris Christie do more than be against the former president? Can they have a Philadelphia vision? Because I think that's what's been lacking. A Philadelphia vision of, yeah, we'll fight the battles against the government we don't want. We'll make it smaller. We'll make it more efficient, more effective for the people. But here's the vision of what we do want. And this is what it means to you in your community, in your hometown. And I think that's going to be the real test for all the candidates tonight. Can anyone differentiate in that space and say, I'll do the Boston battling for you, but I also have a Philadelphia vision I'm going to invite you to be part of.
Right. And civility in government, right? So many Americans are just tired of the political rhetoric and the attacks on both sides. But I had a close family member text me yesterday and say, a lot of these candidates seem nice, but nice doesn't win anymore.
Yeah, it is an interesting balance. And I think to that point, Marni, what I found is that what the American people want is a smart fighter. They want a smart fighter. What they detest is a smart, nice wimp. I think you can go back to 2016, and in the absence of a smart fighter, they will take anybody. They will take a fighter. And I think that's where the former president did well. He said, I'm going to fight for you. If you're tired of people being nice and going along to get along, then I'm your guy. But I think we've become exhausted and exasperated with that kind of approach, a grievance approach to it. And so that will be the test. Can you prove that you're not just smart, not just nice, but you're a smart fighter? And again, I'm going to invoke Ronald Reagan. It's the happy warrior. And we should never assume that a happy warrior isn't a warrior. And I think that's what people like Tim Scott are going to have to prove out tonight, that he does have that happy warrior mentality. He also has to prove the warrior part in terms of what he's actually willing to do and what he can actually get done.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.